I completely understand you're not interested. I'm sure you get these calls all the time. Give me 30 seconds. If you don't like what you hear, I'll hang up on myself.
Hello and welcome to Pillars of Wealth Creation, where we talk about creating financial success with a special focus on business and real estate. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Now, let's get to it. Hey, real quick before we get started, first of all, I wanted to thank everybody for joining us on the show and for listening. To all my loyal listeners, I really appreciate you, continuing to listen and support the show. If you can go on to iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever you listen and subscribe to the show, that would be fantastic. Spread the word too. I'd love to, have this reach more and more people. So if you could share it on social media or and just talk about it to other people, that would be fantastic. And the last thing is if you can go onto iTunes and give us a rating review, hopefully 5 stars, that would be great as well. It just helps us spread the word more, and it helps us continue to get really good guests on the show. We've had some fantastic guests, and I just want to be able to continue to bring fantastic value to you. Go onto our Facebook page too, Pillars of Wealth Facebook page, and I'd like to hear from you as a listener of what you're doing in business, what you've got going on, what you are maybe struggling with or being successful with, and then what we can do on the show to help push you to that next level. Maybe questions we can ask our guests, maybe guests that we can get on the show to talk about certain topics, certain things that are really you're needing some extra support with. So provide for us some feedback on Facebook, and you can also share this out on social media. That would be fantastic as well. I appreciate it. I appreciate you being a either new listener or a loyal listener. I definitely appreciate it, and we will get started with the show. All right, ready?
Yep, let's roll.
Hey, welcome back to Pillars of Wealth Creation. I'm your host, Todd Dexheimer. Today, I've got Sterling White. Sterling, how are you doing today?
I am doing phenomenal. Tune in, everyone. We're about to bring a tsunami.
Awesome. I love the energy. I love it. Well, Sterling, a little bit about him. He is an investor and business owner on a mission to make the world a better place through principled and efficient real estate investment. Today, his focus is on purchasing income-producing multifamily properties while scaling his 400-unit portfolio across the nation through the company he co-founded, which is Holdfolio. Well, Sterling, first of all, we got to get some more definition. You've got a scaling 400-unit portfolio. Tell me a little bit about how you got started and then how you got to 400 units, because you're a young guy, and I always like to see young guys with that are actually doing some good stuff. So congrats on that first, and let's get into it.
All right. Thanks so much. And I'll take it way back. So I've always had the entrepreneurship bug in my early elementary days. My first product was Kool-Aid. So I lived where ultimately where I had to figure out and make ends meet to get the things that I wanted. So that's how entrepreneurship came, selling products to make money to buy the things I wanted. And fast forward to how I got started in real estate was construction when 2008, 2009, where things weren't going so well, got my hands dirty on that, wanted to shift more to the investing side, did some single families and found a mentor who I started working for free, and then just purchased a little over 150, which I still own to date, and made the full transition to multifamily about 2.5 years ago.
How did you purchase that many properties? What was your secret of doing that? Because I think a lot of people, that's 100. You said 150 properties?
Well, that was the single family side.
Yeah,
yes.
Right. 150 single families. That's a few, right?
Just a little.
So how did you purchase 150 single family properties?
Yeah, so we did, my partner and I, who is the behind the scenes operations underwriting phenomenal on that side. Shout out to you, Jacob. And through that we started with friends and family. And in our market, Indianapolis, you get very affordable houses. So we were buying these 30,000, 30,000, put 10 into them, 10 to 15, rent them for 800. So we were taking those, and we had our friends and family, and we would be invested, and then we would get outside investors to cash ourselves out. So instead of alone cashing ourselves out, we were able to get other investors in, give them a return on their cash. We would take our original cash and then just go buy more deals.
Interesting. And you guys were able to then scale that. When did you start buying again?
2014 for the company Holdfolio that started.
Okay. And were these mainly foreclosure properties, or were they just kind of a mixed bag?
Yeah, it was a mix. There was probate. There was just general mom and pop owners. Yeah, I would say a mix.
So why, you got 150 houses. I'm assuming overall your portfolio is cash flowing. Probably some properties are losing money. Some properties are making money. I've got single families. I know how that goes. But overall, you're probably cash flowing. Why not just continue and buy another 150, 300, 400, 500 more single family houses?
Because the management was very intensive. So we took a step back, and our original plan was to have, I believe when we started the company, year 5, to have well over 1,000 single families. And at 150, it was, we have the infrastructure as far as the property managers, leasing agent, maintenance techs, but we looked at multifamily and saw that, hey, over these 150 single families, there was close to 150 transactions, versus when we bought our first 46 unit, that was one transaction, one seller. And so we just looked at those things, the pros and cons of single family versus multifamily, and then it just made more sense to just make the shift.
So was that the main reason? It was just you went, wow, the economy's a scale. We're just not going to be able to do this efficiently, and let's move over to the multifamily, or were there other decisions behind it?
There was also the ability to have more control. So a single family house is more, okay, that house across the street sold for this sold for this. On multifamily, for my research and what I've experienced is it's based upon the NOI. So if you can drive up that NOI, a investor, someone's going to look at it as a business and say, okay, well, I'll buy it on a 7% or 8% cap rate.
Yeah, and that's one thing I really like about multifamily. Now, it's still emotional, right? Because there's things that are tied to it, and everybody's got different business strategies. So, like in today's market, where it's fairly hot, really active market, prices they're not exactly perfect. We can't just say, this property is going to sell for an 8% cap rate, and that's what we're going to buy it at. Oh, I wish there was 8 caps around still.
I agree.
But we can't just necessarily say that. But at the same time, for the most part, you're right. They are based on financials. You're buying a business, whereas a single family house, you're coming in as a Holdfolio, and you guys are trying to buy it as a business. But you've got, Jim and Susie who just got married, and they're trying to buy it for their own house, and they're emotionally attached, and Exactly. They're willing to pay way more. And when the market goes up and people get really crazy and they want to still buy, those go up. So that's good and that's bad as a single family investor.
Which is what we're experiencing now. Those houses we were buying that cheap are just about, I wouldn't say doubled, but same house we bought for 30,000, people are buying for 50, 55.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's and probably the numbers don't quite work as well, I would assume, for you to be purchasing those. Now, the cash flow just doesn't look attractive, I'm assuming.
Not at all.
Yeah. So yeah, that definitely what I agree. Same thing, single family, multifamily, there's pros and cons to both. But when you're talking about purchasing, you've got an emotional buy in single family versus a business and financial buy in multifamily.
Exactly.
Cool. So you guys, you bought a 46 unit, I think you said.
Yes, that was our first one.
Okay. And how has that transition been? Have you now totally changed your focus to multifamily? And I guess take me through that process and where you're at right now.
Yeah, so now the complete shift has been to multifamily, and we're slowly divesting or selling our single families. I mean, they're still cash flowing, so it's not like a fire sale or anything. But right now, the complete shift has been to just acquiring multifamily apartments.
But I know you guys are doing quite a bit of off-market kind of advertising and trying to contact directly to owners. Are you still doing that? I should ask that first. Are you still doing that?
Yes, still getting kicked in the face. That is correct.
Kicked in the face. I love that. I love that because uh, there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast that either invest in multifamily, want to invest in multifamily, or at least interested in it. And there's a lot of people that say you can't market directly to owners. You have to go right through brokers, and that's pretty much the only way to go or the best way to go. What would you say to that? What's been your experience? Because I know you guys have gotten some properties through direct marketing. Um, and I know you do talk to brokers as well. So what's been your experience with, both strategies?
Yeah, so in today's climate for us, going through the brokers, it just hasn't made sense in terms of the competitiveness, and they're more inclined to actually list the property, and then that's where we're just not competitive with what we're willing to pay. So through that, we decided to take our control in our own hands, and 100% of our deals on the multifamily side have been off market, where we've set up a whole system where the initial contact is just cold calling the seller, and then there's multiple follow-ups. So a lot of the single family direct marketing, we've just translated to the multifamily side.
Um, if if you can share, what are the strategies that work to be able to actually get in contact with these owners, because they own in an LLC typically, so they're a little harder to track down. What are you doing to break those barriers?
So this is the fun stuff. And the way we structured it now is we've just broken it down into three components. And I took this model from a guy who worked inside Salesforce and built out an actual sales team within that company. So it's broken down into three roles ultimately. We have a researcher who's the one, we give them our criteria and say we want apartments in Indianapolis, Indiana, between 75 to 150 units. So the researcher goes and finds all those properties. They find who the owner is. It's owned in the LLC. You can skip trace that LLC to find who the owner is. Once you find that owner, you then find their contact information. This is when the second person gets involved, which is the person that is pounding the phones. And then they do the qualifying. If the owner's interested in selling, that's when they then set the appointment for myself to then close it.
And you're trying to collect obviously financial information, all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So you do this research and you find, let's call it 100 properties.
Mm-hmm.
And your guy calls the owners. How many owners is he able to get a hold of out of that list typically?
I would say to kind of not necessarily backpedal, but on that same question, we're looking at 175 to 200 properties, and we're submitting about 10 LOIs, and out of that, we'll snag one deal.
Okay. So, I mean, that's actually pretty good odds if you're looking at it. I mean, it's a lot of work, but
yes,
it's at least decent odds. You're not contacting 1,000 just to get one potential deal.
No, and that's why it's good to have for us very targeted criteria, meaning mom and pop owners. We want C-class assets and C to C plus neighborhoods. That way you can have not a shotgun approach, but a sniper approach. So you can be really targeted. So the person says they're not interested in selling, but you see that they're running the property into the ground, then that's when you do the follow-ups. So that is personal visits, sending them a shoe that says, with a small note that says, hey, I'm looking to get my foot in the door. So just getting creative.
So you guys send them different stuff like that?
Yeah, Rubik's Cubes. Rubik's Cubes is another one where I'll send it and it'll say a small note that says, hey, let's figure this out. So I'll give you an example. I called an owner to follow up on that. And he said, my wife cannot figure out this darn Rubik's Cube. So it's one of those things, once he's ready to sell, he's like, well, I'm going to call that guy that's been constantly following up with me that sent the Rubik's Cube.
How many properties have you guys been able to get up under contract through follow-up, and how often did you follow up?
I would say we've gotten 4 properties that's just under 300 units between those 4. That was in the past year and a half. And follow-up is, just to get in touch with someone is 7 to 12 touches.
Really?
Just to get in touch with them, yes.
So you're persistent. Are you getting people that just say, don't call me again, and you still call them? How do you handle that?
Yeah, so it's all scripted out in all sales. Shout out to GC Greg Cardone, learning his his methods. But Let's say you're on the phone, because a lot of times people will throw out what you call red herrings and say, I'm not interested, just to say it. So you say, I completely understand. Well, this is me going into the role playing. I completely understand you're not interested. I'm sure you get these calls all the time. Give me 30 seconds. If you don't like what you hear, I'll hang up on myself. And then that's when you go into the qualifying, saying, hey, if I were to give you the right price, then would you be it? So you got to fill them out on that. And then that's when, if they say, yeah, I'd be interested at the right price, and then maybe if it doesn't work for you, that's when you then put them in the follow-up. But if they say, hell no, I would never sell to you, then you may want to call that person a month from then. But you're always going to call.
Okay. What's the worst somebody said to you?
Oh,
you probably can't say it on this show. Don't say it. Never mind.
No. There was a guy in Lexington, and the owner just said, submit in the LOI, and he said, you don't know what you're doing. You're a complete idiot. I was like, you could have just said no. But it's all good.
Oh, that's funny.
It happens. The biggest thing is it gives you more hard skin, and I would say that just translates to the real world for me.
Sure. Yeah. Cool. Well, I like this strategy. Today's market's very competitive, right? We were talking just before we started recording about some deals that we both know about. And the numbers just don't work. And like you said, somebody's going to pay that price. And I agree with you. Somebody's going to end up paying the price. We both think it should sell for probably close to $10,000 a unit under what it'll probably sell for. And it's crazy competitive. So unless you can snag that deal prior to a broker getting in touch with them, it can be very hard. I had a deal that a broker had brought to me, and the owner was actually willing to accept an offer that would have worked for me. They didn't have it listed. The broker didn't, and another broker contacted them and convinced the guy his property was worth about $1 million more than what I was willing to pay. And then it ended our negotiations. Now he wants like 10.9 million. I was willing to offer about 10. Thinks his property,
that work for you?
And that won't work for me.
No.
My strike price was at that about 10. And this other broker came in and told him he could sell for about 11. And now it doesn't work. So that just happens. These brokers get involved and they think they can sell it for more. And a lot of times they might be right, but the lower number might have worked for that owner. So I really like that strategy that you guys have going on. And I think it's something for investors, if you're looking to get into the market and learn about it. Taking that approach is not a bad idea, while also, in my opinion, still contacting and having relationships with brokers. Do you guys have relationships with brokers? Do you guys contact brokers, or have you just kind of put that to the wayside?
We do a mix of both. Yeah, we
Yeah.
do a mix of both. And that just allows us to have a more top of the funnel when it comes to deals coming in.
Yeah. And I think it's important, in my opinion, to have those relationships with brokers, whether you're going to buy from them this year, next year, or the year after. But eventually the market's going to shift downward, and the brokers are going to be great contacts to have. And if they already know who you are, they know you've bought properties, and you're contacting them, say, hey, let's get some deals done. It's going to be a lot easier than making that first contact when you're ready to buy, when the market goes down.
Exactly. It's all about relationships.
Yeah.
Even when you're going direct to owners, it's the same thing. Because one thing we didn't want, and this is going all the way back, is going through the broker relationships wasn't working. We just weren't going to say, okay, well, we're just not going to do multifamily at all. We decided to take a pivot and say, okay, well, let's go this method. And then we went all in on it. And then we still do the brokers, but ultimately we just didn't want to be on the sidelines.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. I think that's very creative. That's something outside of the box that most people aren't willing to do, and put the time and energy into it, because it takes a lot of time and energy, I'm assuming.
Oh my gosh, yes. But as long as you have this what it comes back to is treating it as a business. So systemizing it. Originally, I was in there in the trenches doing all the steps, but now I understand the process and was able to delegate it, systemize it, and then now it's completely structured to where it's just overseeing it.
Yeah. So now you don't necessarily do the research. Somebody else comes in, they do the research. I think you mentioned somebody else does the original phone calls. Mm-hmm. And then the last step is you guys are then trying to put the actual contract together, essentially.
That is correct.
Once it becomes, so you don't get involved until it becomes a very, very pretty much hot lead.
Yeah, until it's qualified. And you can find all those roles on either Fiverr, which I don't like Fiverr too much you could do it on the researcher side, but Upwork is a good go-to source. For the researcher, you can pay them $4 to $6.
Really?
Outsource that. Cold caller, you may have to get someone American. If you don't, you may have to get someone US based. So you may have to pay a little bit more, between 15 to 20. But still, I would say it's worth the cost, because it's going to take quite a bit of calls.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, I'm super excited to announce the Northstar Real Estate Conference that I am putting together along with a few other friends, and we are expecting to have a great crowd there. This is going to be September 20th and 21st in Minneapolis, in the Twin Cities area. And hey, it'll still be warm. And we're going to have a ton of great speakers there. We're going to have some motivational speakers. We're expecting to have speakers talking about a lot of different commercial real estate topics, multifamily and commercial real estate. So we want you there. We would love to have a great crowd there. We would love to have you there. And the cool thing with this conference is all the profits are going to benefit charity. They're going to benefit Junior Achievement specifically, who they serve underserved youth, and they bring financial education to them. They not only teach financial education, but they teach the kids how to be entrepreneurs, how to be business leaders, and how to really do fantastic things after they're out of school and moving on. So that's who we're going to be benefiting. We're going to also have a charity gala. It's going to be a fun event, and I'd love to have you attend. So again, it's called the Northstar Real Estate Conference. Check it out. We've got links that we'll put on the show notes. We would love to have you there. We'd love to have you attend. Speaker lineup is coming, and that'll be announced shortly. We do have a few speakers already lined up, so you'll be able to see that. We've got Trevor McGregor will be our keynote speaker. He's a master platinum coach, so you're going to love this event. We are going to just have a ton of fun and learn a bunch, and also benefit a great organization as well. I will see you there. Check out our show notes for the links. Let's talk a little bit more kind of on the business side of your business and how you guys have grown and scaled, because going from 0 units to 150 single families and then going to 400 plus now units is pretty impressive in a short period of time. So let's talk about your business, how you guys have scaled, how you put it together. You mentioned it's you and your business partners kind of the behind the scenes. I'm assuming, I think you said the nerdy number guy.
Yeah. Let's not, hopefully I didn't say nerdy.
You didn't say nerdy. Never mind. I said that. Yeah. No, I like numbers too. So I kind of threw myself under the bus. So. But let's talk about the business side. You know, how have you guys made it work? How have you scaled successfully? And I know you've probably had some growing pains, but how have you scaled successfully and worked beyond those growing pains?
Yeah, so the biggest one was the property management. So we do self-manage ourselves. We did attempt to do a third party, which I was talking to Todd about offline, but that didn't work out. So we brought it back in-house. But it's really, for myself, what's worked is being self-aware of what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. So that is, or what I necessarily just don't want to do. And back to my weaknesses is underwriting, financials. I could do some operations, but I'm more the marketing, property acquisitions, and just being more the extrovert and face of the company. So I was able to find a partner that I currently have that does the underwriting, all those things that I'm weak in. So that's allowed us to scale the operations because we're not doing too much overlapping. And we recently brought on a COO, Chief Operating Officer, who has extensive experience on property management. Before she came on board, a lot of the fires were coming up to, I want to show my hands both up to my partner and I. So we've had the property management company, which was a property manager, leasing agent, all maintenance techs, and where the bulk of our employees are. So we hired that COO, and then now my partner and I are both right here. So she's the buffer, and now it goes like that, which a lot of the fires don't even come to us, so we can focus on the big picture.
Yeah, no, that's good. And how did you decide, like when was the right time to hire somebody?
Well, she was formerly our property manager when we had, I think we were at about 200 to 250 unit counts or under our portfolio. And everything that we own is what we own. We don't third party manage for anyone. And so we had her as a property manager. She was absolutely crushing it. The company she worked for was took her from us because they paid more. And then our property management, we definitely had some challenges. I would say this was about 1.5 years, 2 years, because everything was coming up to my partner and I were still steadily working to buy. And then we said, okay, well, property management company's not doing so well. Let's bring her back on board, and actually offered her equity. So now that decision made so much sense. And yeah, that's the biggest scaling, so we can still focus on the big picture now.
And with, bringing on people, because a lot of people get nervous about bringing people on, you've got, especially as you start, you've got limited income. Even as you go, you want to make sure you're not tipping that scale too much. What speak to that? Where do you think the right time to hire is? Should you hire before the income's coming in? Should you wait? Where's that?
Oh, that's that I am still figuring that out myself, Todd. Yeah, I don't know for me if I've ever came with the right time. I just know for us the struggles so we had the income. Well, well, we also provided a salary to her in addition to equity. So we didn't have to come too much out of pocket. So if it's someone who is facing challenges and they are at a point to where they are, let's say, 200 units and a lot of the fires are coming up to them, then if you don't have the capital, then it's worth maybe giving up some equity to have someone in there to where you can shift your focus to more on growing the business.
Yeah, I think it's for me. It's always when I'm doing way too much stuff and I can't like keep my brain focused because I've got this over here. Like I am just hiring somebody to handle pretty much 99% of my social media stuff. So if you got, this over here and this over here and that going on, and if these are 5 things and you don't know what to focus on during the day, then that's when you need to hire.
I agree.
For me, every time you make a hire, more money actually comes in. The money is typically never the problem. It's the money actually flows after you make that hire. It starts coming in more. That income comes in. It just seems like it always happens that way.
Yeah, and it's about working on your business versus in your business, because for me, I can just look up and say, God, the day's already over. What exactly did I get done before bringing on those hires? Because I was working on low value activities from my standpoint. But when you work on those higher value activities that are actually pushing the needle, as you mentioned, when you bring someone else in, that just brings more revenue to the company.
Talk to me about a little bit about your day and how you try to structure it to maximize the value of your time.
Gosh, so I have an assistant that assists with structuring, because that's one of my biggest my weaknesses. We're getting a little vulnerable. Is I'm not a manager, and also when it comes to structuring, I'm not the greatest. So I have to get someone in there to assist with that. But in terms of my day, it's generally just overseeing the acquisitions team. So just ensuring that the research is being done and the calls are being made. So that's one thing. And a lot is I do a lot of branding on biggerpockets.com. So I put together content and actually shoot the content and do what's necessary on that. I have no structure. Really, it's just a mix of, this is where I want to go, and these are the tasks I need to do to get there.
It sounds like, you say you have no structure. I think you're probably maybe making it sound worse than what it is, but it sounds like your main focus is kind of the vision of the company, and then making sure that the company is getting the marketing and publicity that you need in order to continue to grow, more likely bring in investors because you're doing syndications. You say little structure, but I'm assuming it's a lot more structure than what you really are leaning towards.
Since I'm in it, yes.
yeah, I know how you feel.
I don't even know what day it is anymore, Todd.
Right. Sometimes I'm that way too. Yeah. So to tell us about one of the biggest mistakes you or your company has made, and then how have you guys changed and learned from that mistake?
So I would say on our second multifamily deal, complete transparency, we did not raise enough capital to take care of the improvements. So that's one thing that we're getting through, is most of those were having to come out of pocket to be able to service the property, because we didn't raise it up front. The numbers were a little bit tight. So that was a huge learning lesson on that.
Did you guys do a capital call on that?
No, we did not.
So then when you had that shortfall, what was the conversation with the investors? Was it, we're short on capital, we're going to put the rest into it? Is that what you did? Or how did you come up with that money?
Yeah, so it was actually, we infused our own capital into the deal. And we did have, I'm trying to think if my partner had that conversation with the investors. I know that he mentioned I'm sure he did have a conversation with a monthly update that he normally does, and also a quarterly update. But it was one of those things, yeah, that we said, hey, we're putting this amount of capital to get through the additional renovations that are needed to upgrade the properties to get those increased rents.
Do you, and you might not know the answer to this if you're not dealing with the investors directly, and your partner is, but do you remember with infusing more capital, if there was any, I guess, what was the investor reaction to that, to not having enough of a budget to begin with? Did they understand where you're coming from, or was there difficulty with that?
There's a little bit of difficulty because that first year we weren't able to hit the preferred return, which preferred return is just simply, let's say we have an 8% pref. For that year, I believe we were at 7% or just under 8%. So that following 1% accrues the next year to where we have to get them 9%. And of course, there's a split over that, but we weren't able to get to that split. So that was one of those. We definitely got some pushback in terms of, hey, you guys, we didn't hit the prep this year. And it was more of, hey, we misjudged the amount of capital that it needed. Also, the occupancy wasn't where we wanted to be, what we had in our pro forma. So those were things that we learned with moving forward to our other deals is, I don't, and I want your feedback on this too, Todd, is can you ever be too conservative? Because there's always things that seem to come up.
Yeah, and there's that fine balance, right? I mean, you could you be too conservative? Sure, but you have to be realistic. But things come up, like you said, and sometimes you have to infuse more capital. I've got a deal right now that we closed on that there was several things that nobody could have ever predicted. We had in the middle of the street, it was from just after the city take, so it was our side, a pipe burst. It flooded 4 units inside. We had to dig up the street and dig up the grass, repair that pipe. It had been flowing. Was it over Easter weekend? It was something like Easter weekend or something like that. So it had been flowing for days into the units, destroyed the units. And then, so overall it ended up costing us like $60,000. Nothing anybody could have done about that. There's no way we would have been able to know about it. And so there's certain things that just happen to properties, of course that causes vacancy. So in the scheme of things, it was even probably more than that. So can you be too conservative? I mean, you can always try to plan for more. I think you're right. And okay, we made a mistake this time. The next property, we're going to probably over budget. As I've done every multifamily deal I've done, I continually kind of tweak my budget and give myself more of a buffer every time. It seems like I'm like, okay, I think I can get this done for $6,000 a unit. I'm going to budget, $8,000 a unit, or 6,900 or whatever it is, but I'm going to budget more because you're always coming into random stuff. And I think as long as you're, in my opinion, transparent with your investors, they might not be excited about it, but they're going to be, for the most part, understanding about it. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah, versus getting blind, not necessarily blindsided, but not disclosing it, and they end up finding through some other method.
Yeah, they're eventually going to find it unless you're like cooking your books. And then that's a whole nother issue.
You don't want to do that.
But yeah, that you might end up in jail. But yeah, they're going to find out. They're going to see your capital improvements. They're going to see your maintenance and repairs, and they're going to see the cash flow and the lack of distributions and all that kind of stuff. So why not be upfront and honest with them before the year numbers come out and before all the reports come out? Why don't we say, hey, this is what happened, here's where we're at, and this is what we're going to do to correct it. And I've ran into that before. And you just got to be honest, I think.
I agree. It's all about, and yeah, that's what it comes down to. Relationship based again, because those investors are going to want to invest. That's what we've experienced is the investors we have tend to just repeat. So
Yeah.
if you're honest, transparent, then it's ultimately long-term in this business.
Yep, exactly. So for someone that's trying to get to the next level, go from whatever, 5 single families, 1 single family, 1 multifamily, and grow that scale, what are maybe 3 key things that you think they need to do in order to be successful?
Gosh, the one thing that really helped me, well, out of the 3 is I found a mentor that helped tremendously. That's a whole nother story in itself, how I was able to, well, I found an individual at a CrossFit gym and kept overhearing his conversations and approached him and said, hey, what do you need? I'm willing to help. Don't even have to pay me. So that's how that relationship started. And some people thought I was crazy for working for free. But you think of the amount of knowledge that I was able to get in the 3 years of working for him, from working with him, of the 20 years experience, it just compacted that. So that was the biggest one. And then the second is finding someone that complements your weaknesses. That has always helped for me tremendously to my, you could say, God-given talents or things that I'm just naturally good at, to stay all in on those and find someone else to put in the other areas. And then the third is relationships. No, that's a little cheesy. I'm trying to think of something else. Is working on the business versus within the business is always a great one.
Yeah, definitely. The favorite book favorite book. What's your favorite book?
Gosh. I'm trying to think. I'm just gonna think of one. One I just read recently. Well, actually, it was a couple months back, but it was Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. So the founder of the founder of Nike.
Yep.
So that was a really great book. I really like watching documentaries and also reading biographies, especially of someone who's owned a company and built it at scale the way he has, because you really get into the trenches of their type of thinking and actually how they went from zero to where they're at now. So I thought that was a really cool book.
Cool. Okay. 2 more questions. You got time?
Oh yeah, let's roll.
Right, let's well, maybe 3 more, maybe 4. I don't know. We'll see. So what's your one daily habit that you do for success?
Gosh.
Or one daily habit you can give us?
I would say training. I always train each and every day on sales. So I have a product or a university I log into every day that's just modules on negotiations and just sharpening my skills. Because for me personally, I believe sales is, not only in business, but that translates to life. Prime example is my 6-year-old daughter. If she doesn't want to go to gymnastics for whatever reason, I've got to sell her on, hey, how this benefits you in the long term.
Oh, I can so can hear you there. I got 2 kids too. You're always selling them. No, but I think that's great. Sales is maybe a strength of yours. You're charismatic and you've got that energy that people are attracted to. And so sales are probably a strength of yours, but you're still working on that. And that's very important, to work on your strengths. So many of us think we're going to work on our weaknesses. Instead, what you ended up doing, which I think is brilliant, is finding somebody that can cover your weaknesses. And then you just work on getting that much better at your strengths. They've already got your weaknesses covered. They're working on getting better at that. You're now getting better at your strengths, and you guys are only going to get way better together.
Gotcha. And I just got a cold chill, you just saying that, because that was a huge, well, for me, I've always been taught the other way, which of course that person was possibly just selling, that was through their book and they were selling the course on the back end. But to diversify and try and be good at everything. But yeah, it was an interesting paradigm shift for me.
Yeah, and it is a paradigm shift for a lot of people because we always think we've got to do it all, right? We've got to be good at everything. And that's kind of my brain and my mindset. So it takes a lot for me to go, stop. Like, you don't have to be the expert at that. Somebody else is better at that than you. And it just, for me, it's like, that's how I was like trained and grew up.
Yes.
And it's like, no, you can do everything. Don't let other people tell you can't. It's like, but is that the best thing for you?
Exactly. And that thing that you believe that you excel in, someone else, because it's all perspective or perception in a way that's a whole nother.
So what's one way you like to give back?
Oh gosh. So I would say, and this has been one of my ultimate missions, because the neighborhood that I came from, which there's only one of, the main path that people go, which my brother ended up taking that, unfortunately, it's a not so good path, because I grew up on welfare, Section 8 housing. And so I want to be that path, or that specific ideal to people who are in that environment, that, hey, you don't have to take this route. Here's another route. And this is this is what I did. So that's my ultimate of wanting to give back. And also I'm a big brother, big sister. So I not train someone, but I am a mentor to that kid who is in that troubled environment, to assist them along their journey.
Man, I love that. I love that so much. I didn't grow up in that same type of environment, but through just having tenants, whether it's Section 8 tenants or just low income tenants, and watching some of their habits. And that's one of the things that I really strive to, trying to change that mindset of being in the cycle, because but congratulations, by the way, of getting out of that cycle, because I think that's maybe one of the hardest things for people to do, because that's who you're surrounded by. That's who you grew up with. I'm sure you love your family still and all that kind of stuff, and know plenty of people that are still in that environment, but you chose to make a true choice and get out of it, and now help other people get over. So that's awesome. Congratulations with that.
Thank you.
That's really cool. Last question. What are your 3 pillars of wealth creation? By the way, you gave me chills there when you were talking. So
there we go.
Yeah. What are your 3 pillars of wealth creation?
Ooh, passive income. Does that
Yeah, absolutely.
Passive income is one. 3 pillars. Multifamily investing, which kind of goes into the passive income. And oh man, I didn't think too much on this question. You dropped the bomb on me.
That's what I like to do, man. I want you to think on your toes.
3 well. So I got passive income, multifamily, and just taking my active income and deploying it into passive income.
Yeah, I like it. Active income to passive. Cool.
And buy and hold for the long term.
Buy and hold. Yeah. I think that's very important. A lot of people want to quickly turn their money, and that can be a good strategy as well. But actually long term is another very good strategy. Is your company more focused on that, 3 to 5 year, maybe 7-year plan on a property, or are you guys focused on the legacy property where we're just going to hold it? We maybe don't even have an exit strategy.
Yeah, we're more on the latter. So we'll have in our financials to formulate an IRR. Okay, this is what it would look like in a sale from 5 to 7 years. But our first option is always to go to a refinance, and then the second would be a sale.
Okay. And what's the reaction with your investors? Do they like that strategy, or do some of them want to just say, well, why aren't we selling?
Yeah, so we always have phone calls and better understand what the investor is, what's their investment goals to ensure it's in line. If they're looking to get in, get out, then we just part ways then, because we're obviously not a good fit.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like that strategy, and I like how you guys position that. We can model it for a 5 to 7 year hold. We're also in for the long run. And if we can refinance it, pull some investor capital back out, and that's best for the investors, that's what we'll do. I do like that strategy. I think that's fantastic. A lot of syndication companies don't focus on that strategy. So I think you're unique in that as well, which probably helps in a way too.
Oh yeah.
It's good to be unique. It's good to have your own why. I mean, you guys have your own definition of what you want to accomplish, and that's always good to be unique and set yourself apart a little bit. So, well, Sterling, I really appreciate you being on the show. Time to wrap up. How can our listeners get in touch with you, learn more about your company and what you guys got going on?
Yeah, so you can visit holdfolio.com. And for many of you who are actually on biggerpockets.com and may have seen my pretty mug on there and ball head, is you can, if you happen to have any questions, I'm more than happy to be of value. All you have to do is just slide into the DM on there, which is direct message for all of you on there, just in case.
Yeah, district manager. What? Cool.
I'm a millennial, so
yeah. So, there you go. So if they go on Bigger Pockets, they can just look you up. They can type in the keywords and just look you up, or search. I think you could search by name, right?
Yes, Sterling White.
Look up Sterling White. So perfect. We'll put that on the show notes, and so people can reach out to you. Hey man, I appreciate you joining the show, and tons of good stuff.
I appreciate everyone who's on here. Go out there and do big things, because ultimately I don't want to get too in the spirituality side, but we only got one life, so why not live it?
Heck yeah, absolutely, man. Have a good rest of the day. Take care. Hey, it was great having Sterling White on the show. I appreciate him joining us and spending time out of his day and adding a ton of value. A few things I took from this episode. First of all, he talks about being self-aware of what you're good at, and then bringing others in to, take care of the rest, making sure you're bringing other people that complement your strengths. So then the next thing he talks about is finding a mentor or mentors, people that can help you along the way, people that can help you grow and become better. The last thing he talks about is working on your business, not necessarily just working in your business. Make sure you're working on building and growing your business and continuing to make it thrive. So again, I appreciate Sterling and all the value he was able to bring to us. And I appreciate you learning and listening along with us, and take just a few things from this episode and really try to apply them this week and notice the difference that makes. I challenge everybody to do that. That is it. All for the show. I'm Todd Dexheimer, signing out. Make every day a Saturday. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Couple things before we go. Again, go on to our Facebook page, Pillars of Wealth. We'd love to have you on there. Go on to iTunes, give us a rating and review, and subscribe to the show. Also, don't forget, reach out to me if you want any help with potentially growing your business, and reach out to John Stiles to help you buy or sell real estate. Thanks for listening. We appreciate it. Have a fantastic the rest of the day. And as I say, make every day a Saturday.